vamos cantar Ele Exaltado. Em pé. Vamos cantar Ele Exaltado em pé para chacoalhar esse esqueleto aí que a gente está muito morto. É canto congregacional, isso mesmo. Vamos curvar nossa fronte para uma oração. Querido Pai que estás no céu, santificado seja o teu nome. Muito obrigado, Senhor, porque estamos aqui reunidos para ouvir mais uma mensagem que o Senhor tem preparado para nós, para despertar os nossos olhos, para nos trazer mais perto de Ti e para a gente fazer a Tua vontade. Por favor, fique com o Scotty, fique com cada um de nós aqui, que vamos receber essa mensagem e que essa mensagem venha de Ti, Senhor. É isso que eu te peço e agradeço em nome de Jesus. Amém. Por favor, podem sentar. Muito obrigado aos esses cantores. Muito obrigado. Vocês foram ótimos. Eu queria chamar a Dani. Eu queria chamar aqui a Dani, que ela... E... Scotty, come on up, please. We have something for you. It's just a small token of appreciation for you to be here, sparing time from your family. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much. We're very delighted to have you here with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is just...
Can I open it?
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know what it is, so it's going to be a surprise to me as well.
Oh, I like it. That's very nice. Thank you. And then it sits in there like this and lights it up.
Yeah, nice.
Yes, very nice. Thank you.
Sounds good. Okay, can we make a tradução funcionar? Podemos? Tá funcionando ou não? Tá funcionando no... No celular tá funcionando. Então coloquem, se conseguir colocar o QR Code, que aí quem precisar de tradução coloca no celular, enquanto que eles vão colocando na tela. Just a second, we're making things work. Things are gonna get better. But this is already awesome. So, então quem precisar de tradução, por favor, colocar no seu celular. Se você não precisa de tradução, tá ótimo, mas se precisa, coloca ali, por favor. Vai ser tradução. Ah, já está funcionando. Scotty, with you.
Do you have that clicker?
Oh, okay.
Yes. So last night, we learned about, for those of you that weren't at the presentation, we learned about how some of these spiritualistic ideas that are put in the media are going to come into play in the end of time. And I believe that we need to be careful with those things because Satan is preparing his masterpiece and he will use spiritualism. Today, we talked a little bit about how it influences our minds. There's a lot of evidence that media impacts our brains. It can cause us to do certain things. There's a reason why they pay millions of dollars to put a Super Bowl commercial on during the American football game, the Super Bowl. 30 seconds cost $7 million. If it didn't affect you, that's a bad use of money. Would you agree? Very bad use of money. So we know that it influences us. We make a lot of money at it in our world. So what does that mean for the messages that are told to us? So today, I want to give you a presentation that is called Hollywood's War on God. I believe that a lot of the main movies that are coming out in Hollywood are attacking God. So I want to show you how that's being done and how they start with children's cartoons and those eventually get told to the adults as well. Okay, 1 minute. And I was a fan of movies growing up. My parents did not let me watch movies and television in my house, but I knew what they were. I would go over to my friends' houses and I would watch them as a child, and I was aware of them. But my parents did not want me to watch movies and television. And my father knew enough about Hollywood to just say, it's not good, don't watch it. But I didn't know why. So, of course, in school, I ended up taking classes and wanting to go and make Hollywood movies for a living. I moved to Hollywood. But a lot of this I did not see until I began to read this book right here. This is the only way that I was able to see what was wrong with what I was watching. When I started to really have a relationship with God and I really started to read my Bible, that's when it all began to make sense to me. But I didn't see many of these things. And some of these movies I would watch, I didn't know what was wrong with them. I only saw these things when I began to have a relationship back with God. And then I began to pray to God, Lord, open my eyes. Because I wanted to watch these things. And I said, if you don't want me to watch these movies, God, I give you permission to change my heart. And God changed my heart. To this day, I could care less about a lot of these things. I don't even watch them to point them out, what's wrong with them, to come and show you. I've read about them. I've seen some clips that people have shown me. But I don't sit down and watch all of these things to try and tell what's wrong with them. Because when I started working in ministry, I liked movies. So I wanted to watch them. And I said, this is awesome. I have a ministry that I get to watch movies and point out what's wrong with it. And the more that I watched those movies, the less I could point out what was wrong with it. And that scared me. So I all of a sudden came to God and I said, Lord, I want to know what's wrong with these things. Teach me. And I began to stop watching them and start reading my Bible. And that's what really ultimately woke my mind up. So I know that he can do that same thing for you. If you have questions, think about this. When was the last time you asked God whether you should watch something or not. Have you ever done that? Yes? Good. Yes? But lots of people don't think that they want to waste God's time. Why would I want to waste God's time with asking him? I'll just make the decision. But learn to ask God about everything. Lord, is this what you want me to watch? Is there something wrong with this? Do you not want me to see this? I did that with the Chosen series. Anybody watch the Chosen series? Yes? I watched lots of episodes of those Chosen series because my children wanted to watch them, and I wanted to sit down and have a Bible study with them and talk to them about these concepts that they were watching. And I did not even see what was wrong with them until I started asking God, show me if there's something wrong with them. And God opened my eyes. And then I began to see things that I disagreed with, and I began to talk with my family about that. And we made a video about the Chosen. If you want, we can talk about that later. But I think they're still working on getting it going. It's too big. Too big. Do you want to use my computer? Will it play on my computer? Maybe. But you might not be able to run it through your system.
I don't know. You can try.
Okay.
Do you have HDMI?
Yeah.
Because then we can probably...
Here, I'll just open it up for you, and then you can take it back there. So it's this one here, and you would just press play.
Yeah.
There's the HDMI.
Okay. Let's try.
You know, while they are trying to figure that out, maybe we can ask some questions if you have questions and answers.
It's a pleasure. For example, Saturday nights, we stay in our sofa, comfortable, to watch one new, brand new movie. It's come for years. It's hard sometimes, cut.
Yes. Yes. So if you have a habit of watching lots of movies and that's something that you do regularly, right? Like an addiction, any addiction that you have, it's hard to just cut it off because it will come back in some way, shape, or form. You have to replace that time. You have to do something else during that. So, for example, my time with my wife when we were dating, we would go to the movies. That's how we spent a date and a time with each other. And when I began to say, I don't want these things in my life anymore, I had to find new places and new things to do with my wife. Not just that I didn't want to hang out with my wife. So think of the same thing like this. You have to replace that with time that you would normally spend. So if you would spend 2 hours watching a movie, maybe pick up a book and read for some time, or go for a walk, or ride a bike, or do something else. And you will find that your time then begins to shift with what you used to doing. And with my children as well. My children want to spend time with me. And so I've learned to not spend time with them watching anything on TV. If they want to go outside and play with Dad, that means that if I want to hang out with Dad, let's go outside and let's do something. And now my children love that. They know that they're not going to get me to sit down and watch something with them. And so fun to my children is going and doing something with Dad, not around media. And so you have to learn to teach or retrain yourself to experience things that you would have normally spent that time watching TV or something. Anybody else got another question? Yeah, comedy. Hmm? Yes, 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 yes. So, so let me put it like this. Oh, yes. Um, so I believe that we are all held accountable for our time, right? And when we get to heaven, if God says, "Well, why didn't you learn about me or why didn't you spend time with me?" Lots of people will say, "Well, I didn't have time to hang out with you, God." But we waste a lot of time in this world, right? And that time is not necessarily doing things that are profitable. So I'm not saying that you can never watch something that's fun or funny or, there's lots of things that, I like looking through videos of funny things that cats do. Yes. But there's probably a lot of time that I could be doing something better than just wasting with doing those things, right? And so with young people, I think it's very difficult with them today to learn how to spend their time wisely. And I think that there's a real challenge because some of these things are fun. So let's consider what's happening here chemically in the brain. When we see things that we like, that's pushing dopamine inside of our brains. And all of those social media companies, they want you to spend time with their machine because they can then go to the advertisers and they can sell the advertising time to people, right? So it's in their best interest to keep you there. So just like gambling, right? When you pull the lever, you get a little rush of dopamine. The same thing happens when we see things that we like. We laugh. Laughter creates dopamine, and that makes things exciting for us. So the best thing that I've found with kids is to set limits and talk with them about those limits, meaning they can't just have free reign with the phone and do whatever they want whenever they want. To be productive with it. How much time have you spent reading? Do they do worships in the morning? Do they, those kind of things where they're being responsible with their time, and then they can use the free time to do some of those things, but in a limited way. All right, I think we got it going. So, thank you. Let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time, Lord, and we thank you that we got the media going in the back, and thank you that you have just opened up my schedule to be able to come here and to share this message. And Lord, I know that there are people here that have questions, so I just pray that you be with me, help me to answer those questions, and to help us in these end times to know where to put our time and our energy. We love you in Jesus' name, amen. So Hollywood's War on God is what I titled this, and I think, here we go. I want to read this to you. It's a very interesting thing that Mrs. White wrote. We should study the nature, character, and extent of the spiritual wickedness in high places, lest we become the dupes of the powers of darkness, but how difficult it is to awaken minds to realize the continual activity and the great earnestness of our wily foe, notwithstanding the warnings and cautions of the Bible, and the experience of many who have been overthrown by subtlety. So what she's saying is that we should not be ignorant of how the devil works, because the second you're ignorant of it, he's already won. We should know. That's why if you read this, there's a lot of times the Bible is very honest with us with how Satan has overpowered many of humans in this book. And some people say, well, why is there so many dark things in the Bible? Because God's letting us know what happens when we give our willpowers over to Satan. And Mrs. White is saying the same thing. We should be aware of how the devil works. That doesn't mean that that's your soul study. That doesn't mean that you should only look at that, but you should be aware of how it works. Think. 1 John 5, 2 and 3 says, by this we know that we are the children of God. We love the children of God. When we love God and we keep his commandments, for this is the love of God, that we keep his commandments, and his commandments are not grievous. The Bible talks a lot about keeping the commandments of God. And that is a demonstration of our love for God. It's like when God asks us to do something and we are obedient, the obedience is our way of showing God we want to do what you're asking for us to do. And John is saying, if these things are not grievous, meaning, oh, why do I have to keep the commandments? Why do I have to do what you're asking me to do? That doesn't help anybody if we're always fighting against trying to do them, right? You can go ahead and click it forward. Matthew 22 through 37 through 40 says, love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your soul. And this is the first and great commandment. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. And all the law and the prophets hang on these two commandments. So this is the composition of what the 10 Commandments are really comprising. How to love God and how to love man. Everything kind of fits into that model in heaven. So for the angels had commandments. But did they have a commandment that said, thou shalt not commit adultery? No, because that didn't pertain to them. But they had a commandment to love God with all your heart and with all your mind and with all your soul. And so when Satan said, I don't want to follow God anymore, and I don't want to do what Jesus tells me to do, and I don't want to worship Jesus, that was going against the commandments of God. And so all of these commandments have to do with each other. You can click it to the next one if you want to. Children are supposed to obey their parents. That's what Ephesians 6:1 says. Obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Now, this was the model that God set up so that we would be able to obey and that we would teach our children how to obey. And this would be perpetuated throughout all the generations. Obey the parents, and God is asking us to obey his commandments. And there's something that Hollywood, especially Disney, is very good at saying, follow your heart. And they say this in a lot of their Disney cartoons. It's always promoting this, follow your heart, follow your heart. Even when your heart is telling you something to do, like break the rules, okay? So here's an example of a bunch of cartoons that all tell you to follow your heart.
Say the rules must stay the same forevermore. Open the gates. Whoever made them had to change the rules they came before. So make your own way, show the beauty within. When you follow your heart, there's no higher you can't win. I have to try this my way.
Maybe it's time to start following your heart.
A dream is a wish your heart makes. The dream that you wish will come true.
Where am I?
This is the Great Hall of Judgment.
Judgment?
Welcome to doing whatever you wish.
Tell me, princess, now when did you last, let your heart decide. I can open your eyes, a whole new world, a new fantastic point of view. No one to tell us no or where to go.
Really gonna marry the fairy prince? Yes.
Well, then follow your heart.
You're sure to do impossible things if you follow your heart.
Nothing is impossible if you follow your heart.
A lovely story. You will understand. Listen with your heart. You will understand. Us closer, not apart. When we speak our minds and listen with our hearts.
And give her the courage to follow her heart.
Your only duty is to the Emperor.
But I have another duty, to my heart.
Your duty was to stay home, but your heart told you to break the rules. How did you decide between duty and heart?
By following my feelings, I wound up doing the right thing. I guess I learned that my duty is to my heart.
My duty is to my heart. Yes, that makes sense. That's marvelous. Thank you, Famulon. Thank you.
Write our own story. Follow our hearts.
The Croods made it because of my dad. He was strong, and he followed the rules. The ones painted on the cave walls. Anything new is bad, curiosity is bad, going out at night is bad, basically anything fun is bad. Welcome to my world. But now we know the Croods will make it, because we changed the rules. The ones that kept us in the dark.
When life gets me down, I play my guitar. The rest of the world may follow the rules, but I must follow my heart.
You know it's crazy, right? To help my family, I gotta leave it. To fix the law, I gotta break it.
You'll be great.
Whether it's fair or not, that's the law.
The law should be fair. What are we teaching our kids?
Disney on Ice presents Follow Your Heart.
It's time to see what I can do to test the limits and break through. No right, no wrong, no rules for me. I'm free. Let it go.
So, that was my coworker, Mikey. We were illustrating a point about what would you say to your child if you said there's no rules for me and I'm free of all that? Can I steal? Can I cheat? Can I lie? Can I break all the rules? No. We wouldn't want to say that in a church setting, but we have these videos at home that tell our children something very different. So this was to illustrate a point how many times they tell you to follow your heart even if it's different and you need to break the rules. You always follow your heart. Why does the devil want you to follow your heart? Now, these stories get more and more complicated. Oh, did it change? Let's see if I can get it to, okay, I'm gonna go forward. I think it's probably because there's video and stuff in there, huh? Yeah. See if that changes it. Maybe I just need to press it harder. Okay, I'll press harder. So let's go back one. Wah. It's my hand. Maybe if I stand in the right position. No. Okay, now it worked. Okay. Maybe it's you. That'll work. We'll read this. Ecclesiastes 12:13 says, "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. This is the whole duty of man." So this is the entire summarization of what God is saying we are doing on this planet right here, that God is saying, fear him, do what he's asking for us to do. Go ahead and click it forward. The Bible tells us in Jeremiah 17:9 that the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it? We're not called to follow our hearts because our hearts can lead us astray. Another word for heart is emotion. And I believe that in the end of time, the devil is wanting us to be very emotional beings. And this is the reason why music is very important. Do we listen to the right type of music because of the theology and the way that the music is, or do we listen to the music because of the way it makes us feel? I believe there's two ways that the end time church is being swayed right now, to operate off of their feelings or operate off of their theology of God said it, I'm going to do it. And so I believe that this is not by chance. You can click it forward. That there is a bunch of cartoons that are starting to slam the commandments of God. This one was called Smallfoot. And this was a particular message that I believe that most went right over the tops of most kids' heads. But they're talking about the 10 Commandments. In the beginning of the story, this particular Yeti right here, they're told that they cannot go down to the lower parts of the world. They need to stay on the top of the mountain because there is these little tiny things called small feet down there, and that it's a myth that they don't exist. And so he finds out that there really is a small foot down there, and hence where the story starts to take place. Go ahead and play the first one. Okay, so this is the very first opening scene, and listen to how they say, everyone is happy because everybody follows all the rules. Listen to this.
This is my world. And I gotta say, it's awesome. And the best part, everyone's happy. That's because our world is built on a foundation of stones. See, we have these laws that are written in stone. Literally written in stone. Interpreted and enforced by the Stone Keeper. They pretty much tell us everything that we need to know.
The stones are here to protect us and keep us safe.
So that's the information that's told to you. Everybody's happy because everybody follows the rules that are written in stone. Literally and repeated, written in stone. And now the whole entire story goes and says that, you know what? These things that were written in stone, they're actually a lie. And what you're finding out that are written in these stones, they're all lies. And watch how they do this. He finds out that the stone keeper, that's the guy with the stones all over his body, he finds out that his daughter has a secret society of people that are trying to find out if these small feet are real, and she tells him for the first time that the stones might not be telling you the truth.
What is this place exactly?
The secret headquarters of the SES.
Wait, you're like a Smallfoot club? And hold on, you're the leader. But you're the Stone Keeper's daughter.
Look, I love my father, but he isn't exactly what you would call open to new ideas, because questions lead to knowledge.
And knowledge is power.
Okay, some things I want to point out here. That they are making this, the father is not open to new ideas. Do you notice how Disney's always slamming the father? And how that they're saying questions lead to knowledge. What happened in the Garden of Eden? There was a question that led to this knowledge, and that knowledge leads to this power. But does knowledge really lead to the power? I think we're in worse state unless we would have listened to God. But anyway, so he sits here and he questions her about going down below the mountain, which they're told they're not supposed to do.
Proof? That's where we need to go.
In the nothing?
You're crazy.
Don't call me crazy.
Yeah, I bet we're calling crazy guy crazy.
You wanna know why it's called the nothing? Because there's nothing down there.
Why do you believe that?
Because it's in the stone.
So is the one that says there's no Smallfoot, and yet you saw one.
Yeah, why is there a stone that says something doesn't exist? Doesn't that just prove that it actually does? And if one stone is wrong, then others could be as well.
What? Other stones? How many do you think are wrong?
The whole robe.
Huh.
And so if they find out that just one of these stones could be wrong, then the entire bunch of stones could be wrong as well. And that, I believe, is what the devil has been trying to do. And so then he has this conversation with the stone keeper, and I want you to notice the imagery. It's not by accident that the camera is pointing up towards a beam of light that is looking a bit like a cross. I don't think that's an accident. And listen to what he's actually saying right here.
Well, so none of those stones are true. They're all lies.
Good lies to protect our world.
But they need to know the truth.
Oh, do they?
So, how do they portray the stone keeper, the one that wrote the laws? He's a liar. He's mean. He's literally like there to control everybody. That's the message of the story. And when you actually look at the songs that were chosen in this story, it's really interesting. The first song was called Perfection, and it was all about everybody living in a perfect world until they questioned what was going on. Then they learned that it was a lie, and then they left the world that was up in the mountain that they were being lied to, and they went off and explored the whole thing. And all the songs are like in the order that they're sung in is telling you to basically leave this lie that they've now been told. The Lego movie was a very similar type of movie. In the very beginning of the movie, everybody followed all the rules all the time. And when they followed all the rules, everybody was happy. And they even sang a song that said exactly that. And so here he is waking up 7 o'clock in the morning, and you can see he follows all the rules. Oh, I think it's very interesting that they chose 7 o'clock too. But notice, he does the same sort of like routine every single morning, says hi to everybody. He goes over to the instruction book. He reads the instruction book. And he says how to fit in, how to have everybody like you, and how to always be happy. And he's always following all these instructions all the time. And the first time that you see him break the rules is when he meets the character Lucy. When he meets Lucy, Lucy gets him to break the rules, and he then starts this adventure that's on this whole thing. Very interesting. His name is Emmett. Emmett in the Hebrew words means truth. That's what the word Emmett means. And so I find it interesting that the guy that is very like following all the rules and whose name is truth, the Bible tells us who's also the definition of truth. John 14:6 says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus is the very definition of truth. And in this story, he sacrifices himself, and he comes back to life in the end. One of the characters that is known as Mr. Lord President Business, he says, oh, you're back from the dead, Bukowski. So this is kind of like a Jesus character. And this President Business right here, who owns the world, listen to what they describe him as. He's the one that is going to put everybody to sleep if you don't follow the rules. He wants everyone to follow the rules. Listen to what he says.
Hi, I'm President Business, president of the Octad Corporation and the world. Let's take extra care to follow the instructions or you'll be put to sleep. And don't forget Taco Tuesday's coming next week. That's the day every rule-following citizen gets a free taco and my love.
And so here, this person that owns the world and is in charge of the world is telling them, if you don't follow the rules, I will put you to sleep. Will God put you to sleep if you don't follow the rules? Yes. Yes, he will. In the very end, in fact, you will go eternally to sleep if you don't follow the rules. And notice how they even just make a little slam. Every rule-following citizen will get my love. What is that basically saying too? If you don't follow the rules, you don't get my love. That's slamming, once again, God. And in the end, that is the father figure in the story. Do you notice how they're always digging at the Father? Do you notice that? So here, listen to what he says. Notice they have the horns and the red. They're making him out to be the devil villain. He's the father and this person that's going to put everybody to sleep. And listen to what he says, all he wants in the world.
And you just wrecked it. You wrecked it. Bad cop, you see what I'm talking about? All I'm asking for is total perfection.
So in the story, he's wanting total perfection. That's just a slam on God. And they put these ideas out there, and kids read these things. The Bible tells us that 1 John 4:3 says, whoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law. And they are talking about breaking the rules and breaking the law. And it's this idea that that's okay for you to break the rules and break the law. Now, that's for kids. What happens when the teenagers start watching these concepts? So this movie right here was for the teenagers. And it's taking this same concept, just like you would tell a kid a story, and then you were going to tell them more information as they grow older. This is more information. This is more geared toward them, but the same concept. Here is the opening scene to the movie. It's called Free Guy, and it's about a guy who doesn't want to follow all the rules, and he's the hero of the story. Listen to what they say.
This is Free City, and the people who wear sunglasses are heroes. They have a devil-may-care attitude, and they run this town. See? That's not even his car or his wife. For the sunglasses people, they get to do anything they want. They go on all sorts of missions, they got cool hair, cool clothes. I mean, laws aren't really laws to them. They're more like mild suggestions. Like, I don't think he's gonna return that car or that nice lady. See what I mean? Hero.
So how is this spoken to the teenager? Here's a guy that has a devil-may-care attitude, and he steals a car. That's not his car. He steals that girl. That's not his wife. He's not going to return the car, and he's not going to return the wife. He's the hero. Do you see what kind of information is told to the teenagers? And you wonder why many times these get fed again and again and again. And these stories become more and more complex until they are fully rejecting God. God, we don't want anything to do with you. 2 Corinthians 2:11 says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. That was repeating, or that was what originally Mrs. White was making that comment. We should not be ignorant of how Satan works. We should be able to spot that. We should be able to watch that and say, that's not something I want in my child's mind. We're not going to watch this thing. Transformers. No. Not this one. Let me ask you a question. Who is the good guy? What's the good guy's name? The one on the left. Optimus Prime. And Megatron, it says underneath Megatron's, this is their poster for the movie, by the way. It says, destroy Megatron and protect Optimus Prime. There's a reason why they put that on there. This is the story, and this is the opening scene of the series. Listen to the information that's told to you, and we'll talk about it.
Before time began, there was the cube. We know not where it comes from, only that it holds the power to create worlds and fill them with life. That is how our race was born. For a time we lived in harmony, but like all great power, some wanted it for good, others for evil. And so began the war.
So here's the information that's told to us. There's a war in the galaxy. Do we believe that? Yes, we do. There's something that has the ability to create a world and fill it with life. Who has the ability to create a world and fill it with life? More specifically, Jesus. The only thing that the Bible tells us, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. The Word was God. Nothing was created that was created without Him. He created everything. That's specifically Jesus. Okay? So, this is what the entire story is about. There's this thing that has the ability to create a world and fill it with life, and this is what they will tell the audience. This is how to end this war.
Freedom is the right of all sentient beings. You all know there's only one way to end this war. We must destroy the cube.
The only thing that has the ability to create a world and fill it with life, that's the object of the first story, to kill it. That's Jesus. And what's interesting about that is when I saw this, I said, I wonder if each one of these movies has them trying to kill Jesus. And if that's the case, then what is these villains that are fighting against it? Megatron, who's the bad guy in the first one, he's found in a cave, and he's frozen, it says, for thousands of years. He's frozen, and then they wake him up. And to God, a day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as a day. So I find it interesting that the villain of the story is in a cave for multiple days, and then they wake him up. And in the first one, they actually end up killing him, killing Megatron, and they put him in a tomb. Why would you use that word tomb? That's only associated with Jesus. So listen to them talking about putting him in the tomb.
Gentlemen, the President has ordered Sector 7 be terminated and the remains of the dead aliens disposed of. The Laurentian Abyss is 7 miles below sea level, deepest place on our planet. The massive depth and pressure there, coupled with sub-freezing temperatures, would crush and entomb them.
So in the end of the first one, they put him in a tomb, and in the next one, they wake him up. But I want to point something out to you. This is how the Transformers came to planet Earth. This is how they show you that they came to planet Earth. They came down, crashing down to planet Earth, okay? So let's just look at this right here. Optimus Prime fell to Earth. He's hiding here. He calls himself a violent race. He's fighting for freedom, and Optimus Prime can never leave the planet. Megatron wants to destroy the Earth. They call him Lord and Master. They put him in a tomb, and then all of a sudden, in the very next one, they resurrect him from the tomb. Listen to this.
Lord Megatron, I was so relieved to hear of your resurrection.
Lord Megatron, I was so pleased to hear of your resurrection. They are taking the ideas of God and Satan and they flip it upside down so that they make God look like the evil villain because he's wanting to come here and destroy the world. Who's going to destroy the world in the end of time? Is that the devil? No, in fact, the devil cannot destroy the world. Only God has the ability to destroy the world. We only have one example of when God has ever destroyed the world, and that's in the flood. That's it. We've never had an example of Satan destroying the world. And so I find it interesting that all of these beings are coming from an outer world to come and destroy the world. And the whole Transformers are wanting to stop it. On the next Transformers, called The Last Night, it says at the top of their poster, for one world to live, the other must die. And this is a story where Optimus Prime goes and meets his maker. And listen to, this is the one that is wanting to come and destroy the world. And the maker even calls herself the creator of life, the maker. Listen to this scene.
Seu mundo está morrendo, Optimus. Eu estava esperando você, Optimus. Venha conhecer sua criadora.
Você é a minha criadora?
Eu sou Quintessa, a Prime da vida.
Eu vou matar você!
Você se atreve a atacar a sua deusa? Sua guerra condenou Cybertron.
Megatron começou a guerra!
Você destruiu seu mundo, seu tolo! Minha criação perfeita. Você vai consertá-lo, ou a raça dos Transformers morrerá para sempre. Eu fiz você. Você
So you get the point. That's a twisting of God. And notice how she says that she created him to be perfect and that he's destroyed the planet, that he's ruined the race. Is that not what happened? Is that not Satan and what Satan has done? And here they are flipping the story upside down so that when you watch these movies, you want Satan to win. They're psychologically playing with our minds in these movies. She even asks him if he wants to be redeemed. So a question to you is, if Optimus Prime is Jesus, does Jesus need to be redeemed? No.
São Prime. Busca.
Minha criadora. Eu busco.
And Jesus was not created in that sense. It was an incarnation, not a creation, if that makes sense. So that model fits. And look at what Optimus Prime then now goes and says to his creators in the very next movie.
I am Optimus Prime, and this message is to my creators. Leave planet Earth alone, 'cause I'm coming for you.
That's the words of Satan. Literally, Satan is telling God, leave this planet alone. If you come to this planet, we're going to have a problem, and now I'm coming for you. Do you see what movies are doing? Do you remember what I showed you this morning with what happens inside the brain? Is it's making, when we watch something, it's making it as if we are having that spirit. And when we sit there and we have this kind of a thing, we're telling God, you need to leave us alone. You need to leave planet Earth alone, because our brains are firing as if we're saying those things ourselves. That's why I think it's very important to be careful what we watch and what we pay attention to. In the very next movie, the villain that is coming to destroy the world, they show you a picture of his hand, and he literally has a hole in his hand. Every single villain that they have has a tie back to Jesus. What other being in the universe has a picture or a hole in his hand? That's only Jesus. We know that Jesus is going to have a hole in his hand because it tells us remember when John doubting Thomas saw him and Jesus said, put your hands in my side and put your hands in my hands, and you can see that it is me, Jesus. We know Jesus, even as his resurrected Jesus, he will still retain those holes so that we can always go up to Jesus and we can always see what happened on this planet and be reminded of what has happened. And notice this. Do you see at the top of the poster, it says unite or fall? Unite together or fall, meaning that something's coming, and if we don't work together to fight against what's coming, then we will fall. And that's what they're telling you in the movie called Rise of the Beasts. Listen to what they say in the movie trailer right here.
For centuries, our kind has stayed hidden on Earth. But darkness has found us again. Prime. This is about the fate of all living things. Unicron is coming.
All right. Unicron is a planet that is coming to destroy the world. And so I looked up, what is Unicron? Here's the wiki that Unicron says. It's the arch enemy and the twin brother of Primus. And it says that Unicron will bring an end to a creation boasting independence around him. So anyone that says they're independent, he's going to destroy. And it says that if Unicron makes a deal, he exchanges power and servitude. And listen to what they say. They even call this being God. Listen to this.
Those things that attacked us earlier.
Terracons, servants of a dark, hungry god who feeds on entire worlds to sustain himself.
Unicron.
So they call Unicron God. And this is one of the beings that serves Unicron. And they call him Lord and Master. And they say, Lord and Master, when you come, you will reign supreme in the universe. Listen to what he says.
My lord, once I am the king, I alone will reign supreme.
They are literally showing you an image of God and making him evil, and then wanting you as the viewer to fight against God. And they do it over and over and over again. And they do it many series. It's not just this, it's Marvel, it's DC, it's all of these. They literally have copied this same type of thing over and over and over again, and they have just fought against God. And that's why I'm recognizing all of these things. Watch what he says right here. This is speaking to this God. When he asks this particular being that's kneeling before him, and he tells him to rise, listen to what he says when he says, what have you found on this planet?
Rise. My hunger is killing me. What have you found? Salvation. The galaxy will once again be yours to feast on, my master.
He found salvation? When you look at what salvation means in the dictionary, it means the preservation or deliverance from ruin, harm, or loss. Isn't that exactly what God is offering us, is salvation? So why is the evil villain saying, I'm going to destroy the world, but I'm offering you salvation? That doesn't make sense. But do you see what this is right here? Is it's called the words of God. These are words that we put into our mind, and we eat these words and we digest these words, and they get into our minds. And those words, enough of God's words, will build up a worldview on God. But you know what? The devil's doing the same thing. He's telling you his words. And he's giving you his words, but he's giving them through the media. And if he gives you enough of his words and you eat his words, you will build up a worldview of what he wants you to know. And that's why the brain records all of these things. There is scientific evidence that says when we watch something, it bypasses the frontal lobe, the blood flow to the frontal lobe stops working. Where do you talk to God? Do I talk to God on my hand? Do I talk to God on my foot? Where am I actually communicating with God when I speak to God? So when you go into the movie theater, if you shut off the frontal lobe, you stop the communication with God, and you open your brain to listen to whatever thoughts that movie wants to tell you, and you will not consciously think about it at the time that it goes in. That's scientifically proven. You can look that information up. And so this is why I believe that we need to be careful, because there are things that are coming in our media that are directly attacking God. 7 Deadly Sins is an anime. In the United States, anime is one of the largest growing mediums out there. And the 7 Deadly Sins are the sins of the 7 Deadly Sins. sloth, pride, envy, wrath, greed, gluttony, and lust. These are the good characters in the story, and the bad characters are the 10 Commandments. Who they're fighting against and trying to kill is the 10 Commandments. This was the 4th most watched thing in my country last year. 4th most. Not 4th cartoon, not 4th just subgenre. 4th most watched thing on Netflix in the United States. And I live in a Christian country where supposedly I don't think I've ever met anybody who does not know who the 10 Commandments are. But if they can put out a show that fights against the 10 Commandments and nobody questions it, the devil's going, are they ready? Are they ready? Are they ready for me to come out and step out on the scene? I believe that we are coming to a day and age that this is happening. Here's the 7 deadly sins. They were formed by 7 brutal criminals, and they had symbols written in their bodies. They are the protagonist of the series. The commandment is called a curse, a magical power created by the demon king, and it says that they're the ones that are trying to be destroyed in the story. The leader of the 7 deadly sins is called the sin of wrath, or the dragon sin. Now, isn't that interesting? That the very leader is called the dragon sin of wrath. What does the Bible tell us? Revelation 12:17, that the dragon was wroth with the woman, and that he went to go make war with the rest of her offspring, who are the commandment keepers of God. Isn't that interesting that we have a cartoon that literally is mimicking prophecy in the end of time? And sin of wrath has an Ouroboros on him. That's called the dragon sin. If you just type that into Google, you would see this. The Ouroboros has always traditionally been a very occult symbol. And you can see lots of people are into this show. They're getting tattoos and all sorts of stuff that deal with it. But look at this. That's Melodious, the dragon sin. And it says that he used to be the head of the 10 Commandments, and he used to be called Melodious the Love. But he went away from the 10 Commandments. He's now fighting against them, and instead of Melodious the Love, he's now the dragon sin of wrath. Isn't that interesting? That's literally the 10 Commandments. It's called the 10 Commandments. 10 Commandments. Straight like that. Straight like that. And let me tell you, I have looked on the internet. Who's saying something against this? Surely somebody is saying we shouldn't be watching this. You cannot find somebody saying anything negative about it. It is mind-boggling. 4th most, I took a screenshot of Netflix in the U.S. during that day, and you can obviously see that it's not just cartoons. It was the 4th most watched thing. In the U.S., we have a growth from 2006 to 2016. Look at how much anime has grown in my country. Now, USA is the #1 consumer outside of Japan. Brazil, you guys are right there in the middle. You're pretty much on par with everybody else. But look at this, from 2020 to 2030, where are they wanting anime to go? They are projecting that it will not go away, it will double in its size. And let me tell you, anime is one of the most destructive things that I have actually ever witnessed in the past 15 years, and I'll tell you why. I've been asked to speak at more of our schools and universities in the United States. I won't say which ones, but more of them this year, where people would actually say, please come and talk to our young people about anime, because our young people are hearing voices talk to them in their head. I have never, ever, in my experience of 15 years, heard of anybody having voices talk to them in their heads because they watched a movie. I have heard it over and over and over again with anime. They are constantly talking with me, kids saying, I hear voices, talks to me straight, and they are, and I always ask, what started this? Where did this start? Always began when they started watching anime. Be careful with watching anime. It opens a door and I believe we should be very careful of it. The Lord examines the righteous, but the wicked, those who love violence, he hates with a passion. When have you ever heard God hate something? Have you ever heard God hate something? He hates the sin. He hates the violence. He hates it with a passion, is what the Bible says. That's why we need to be careful not watching things with tons of violence. This is what Martin Luther says, the heart clings and whatever the heart clings and confides in, that is God. And John Calvin also said the same thing. The human heart is an idol factory. We got to be careful with those things. And let me say it like this. In the end, 2 Thessalonians 2:9-12 gives us a recipe how to not be deceived in the end. Listen to this recipe. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. Meaning, there is somebody coming that is going to work just like Satan works, with all sorts of displays of deceiving signs and wonders, and with all deceivableness and unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not a love for the truth. If you want to make it through the end, fall in love with the truth. What is the truth? Thy word is truth. Sanctify them by thy truth. You want to learn to read the Bible because that's where we understand and know what the Bible is telling us, what is true and what is not true, and that they might be saved. And for this cause, God shall send them a strong delusion, meaning God allows us to have a delusion confront us. And those people that believe the lie, that they're damned because they believed not the truth and had pleasure in unrighteousness. So how can we make it through the end time? Don't have pleasure in unrighteousness. Fall in love with the truth, and therefore you will not be deceived when that delusion is sent to you. Does that make sense? So I believe that this time is coming, and we will need to have all of our faculties working properly. And that's why I think that too, we numb our senses when we watch all this evil and this unrighteousness and this evil stuff, that it dulls our senses. So here is a book series that was aimed at children. This book series was taken out of our country as a challenged book. When you challenge a book, that means you cannot put it in the libraries and things. But in the UK, they made it into a TV series. So this is a book series that was aimed at children, and it's called His Dark Materials. And they are literally fighting against God. And listen to what he says about wanting to kill God.
Some of us will die today. Authority wants you to be afraid of that. Why not? We're all of us here mortal. Whether our lifespans are 300 or 300 years, our time down here in the earth is finite. And so we cower. We cower under the tyranny of an authority who calls himself Creator. Who tells us that hell awaits those who disobey him, and that paradise exists only for those who obey. This is a lie. A lie that has prevented us from living our lives to the utmost. Today is our chance. It is our chance to tell him that our lives are beautiful and precious, and that we should be allowed to experience all they have to offer without the fear of retribution. Because if we don't fight until the end, we will lose everything. So yes, today some of you will die. But thanks to my daughter, thanks to Lyra, we need no longer fear that fate. For from today, death is no longer an ending, but instead a journey back into life. So from today, the authority has no power over us. Today, life confronts death, and our light shines through the darkness. Today, we will tell him that our children shall experience paradise, but they will know it down here, in the earth. Today, we are free!
The kingdom of heaven is nigh.
Let's bring it down, shall we?
That, I imagine, is a speech that Satan will give in the final fight against the city. That was for children. Those are children's books. Children's books. That's not for adults. Those are for children right there. This is why I feel very passionate about trying to go and educate people. These are no longer movies. These are teaching tools that are doing nothing different than what God is trying to teach you. He's trying to give you a world view, a view that God loves you. And the devil is doing the same thing, but instead of a Bible, he's got movies, and he's passing his information that God hates you, and we don't need God. And he's this controlling entity that we just need to do away with. And you see this over and over again. Look at what Mrs. White writes in The Great Controversy. Just before us, the hour of temptation which shall come upon the whole world and will try them upon the earth. All whose faith are not firmly established on the word of God will be overcome and deceived. If you are not grounded on this book, if this book is not the foundation of your home and your life, listen to what these words say. You will be overcome. It is so important for us to make a stand now. Don't let these things in your home. They're teaching the wrong picture to our children. All of these movies and things like this. Margot Robbie's Barbie. Look at this. This movie right here, in all of these articles, said that this movie was full of stories that will deeply resonate in society for many years to come. This isn't just one. People were breaking up with their boyfriends after watching Barbie. It's leaving a lasting impact upon culture. That movie, they're telling you, will ripple through a culture for a long period of time after that movie's done. And let me tell you, why is that? People are breaking up with their boyfriends. Look at all these articles that talk about this will be felt for years to come. Why is everybody saying that? Because when I saw the opening teaser trailer, this is from Warner Brothers picture right here. What are you seeing right here?
The dolls were always and forever baby dolls.
You're seeing girls playing with their dolls.
Until
they're babies because they're doing what their mommies, they're mimicking their mommies. But now all of a sudden they see a plastic woman that's better than the babies. And so what do they do with their babies? What are you going to do with your babies? Throw your babies away for this life right here. This is the life. Fake plastic life. That's the message that was just relayed by that video that they just put out right there. And what is our world grappling with? What is the one thing that us Americans are fighting in our country right now for? It's my body. I can do what I want with it. They're killing babies up to literally the last week of pregnancy. Mind-boggling that we are dealing with this in our society and that they can put a movie out like this and nobody questions it. That's different than my Bible. That my Bible tells me God died for every single person. And the beautiful gift of life. Do you know that when a sperm enters the egg, have you ever seen what happens in that moment? A flash of light. Light. How did God start this world? Light. There's a life. Bam! Miraculously started. And the devil just wants to kill us. And so look at these two. This is the director and the main actress in there. And listen to what they're saying in the movie, what the movie is about. Listen to this.
You know, they don't like to call it a feminist film. The actors seem very comfortable with talking about it as a feminist film.
Yeah.
But somehow it doesn't matter that you talk about it differently.
Yeah, I mean, well, it most certainly is a feminist film. And I think the sort of...
Can you explain that? Why? How so?
To me, it's like that's like one slice of the pie. Like it's so... It's
pretty big.
It's a big slice, but like, I don't know. I know. I also wouldn't call it a funny film because then that discredits the fact that it's got a lot of heart and it's got a lot of emotion and it's got a lot of like movie references, you know, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, it is funny. That is a huge part of it. It's a comedy. Right. But if you just call it a funny film, you almost make it sound like it doesn't have a lot going on, and it does.
Well, I mean, like this is sort of when we talk about this stuff, it almost sounds silly because you you start talking about Barbie and Ken, and then you're having very serious discussions about Barbie and Ken, but it's like, I mean, I think to whatever that sort of like, it's also a humanist film.
Okay, so she just said it's a humanist film. It's a feminist film and a humanist film. We know what feminism is, right? Feminism, I don't need a man. And how did God create the world? He created us together, right? You need each other. We have different roles. God made the man and he made the woman to help the man. And they're not unequal. They're not one over the other. They're helpers to each other, fulfilling different roles. Satan would love to reorder that. So let me just tell you this right here. This is what Spirit of Prophecy says, that all members of the family center in the Father. He is the lawmaker, illustrating in his own bearing the sterner virtues, energy, integrity, honesty, patience, courage, diligence, practical usefulness. The Father is in one sense the priest of the household, laying on the altar the morning of God, the morning and evening sacrifice, and the wife and children should be encouraged to unite in this offering and also encouraged engage in song and praise. The head of the household is the husband and father, and the wife looks to him for love and sympathy for this and for the training of the children, and this is right. This is what Mrs. White was saying. Now listen to this. Humanism is the outlook or attaching prime importance to the human rather than the divine. And what did the director say? This is a humanist film. This is we don't need God, we need man. They're reordering what this order is that God gave us. So in a sense, even movies like this are fighting against God. This is awful, and I don't even know if I need to show you this cartoon. But this, I heard there was even a couple Adventists that worked on this cartoon and for the animations of it. This was a very heavily watched show. I think I'm not going to show it to you. Just simply, you don't need to see that. Christian home is the object lesson. The mission of the home extends beyond the members. The Christian home is to be an object lesson illustrating the excellence of true principles of life. Such an illustration will be a power for good in the world. And do you know that in some places She says, a well-ordered, well-disciplined family tells more in the behalf of Christianity and than all the sermons that can be preached. I could preach sermons to you all day long, and do you know what would speak louder to you than anything else in this world? A well-ordered Christian family that will tell the truth of the gospel stronger than anything that I can preach to you. The devil hates this order. And he's going to put whatever he can in front of the people to try and change what we believe. The people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. They worship me in vain, but their teachings are mere human rules. There are many people in examples where people have just gone through the motions in the Bible. But I believe that God is looking for people who truly believe and love to do what he's asking for us to do. If God says do this, we're coming into a day and age that we're saying, God, you said it, I will do it. If God says worship on this day, God, you said to worship on that day, I will worship on that day. That's what God's looking for. Not mere human rules that we are following and vain teaching. Not everyone will say to me, Lord, Lord, who will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father that is in heaven. What is the will of God? When that was asked of Jesus, what is the greatest commandment? What did Jesus say? Love God with all your heart, your mind, and your soul, and love your neighbor as yourself, because all of those things hang on those two ideas. So he says, anyone that does those two things, if you love God, you're going to do what God says. If you love God, you're not going to be mean or cheat or lie to each other or steal from each other, that kind of stuff. On that day, many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name? That's a Christian, prophesying in God's name. Did we not cast out demons in your name? That's a Christian, casting out demons, throwing them out. Did we not do many mighty works in your name? And then I will declare for them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of what? Does God want us to follow the law or not? Because if you call yourself a Christian and you don't follow that law, look at what happens to people that call themselves Christians, but they're workers of lawlessness. God wants us to do what he's asking for us to do. And I believe that many of these movies instill into us a disregard for the law of God. Is there any questions before we close down with prayer? Anybody got any questions? Okay. Yes. 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 I believe that many of these movies, like you're talking about, plant seeds into people's minds. Much of what we do in our life today is done through our subconscious. Go and talk to anybody that understands about psychology. Much of our operations are subconscious things that we've learned or done since we were children. And so those things can dictate when there becomes a problem, where are people reacting or why are they reacting like that? Right now, we're training people how to kill people and have disregard for life. Fortnite, that was a great killing tool. How to kill everybody and be the last person standing in the room. That's what that game was. How do I kill you and be the only one standing in the room? Now we've just trained an entire population around the world to do that. And what happens when times get rough and all of a sudden people start really picking up real guns? How are they going to react? How they've been trained. That's Pavlov's dog. You have a question? One Piece? I've actually never heard of that one. Do you know what it's about? Okay, so let's think about that based on the information that you just gave us. There is a fruit that can give you a special power. What does that make your mind think of? I mean, we see this concept a lot in Mario, right? There you're eating these fruits and they give you a special power. You see it in Pac-Man. You eat a fruit, you get a special power. You can go chase the ghosts and things, right? Those kind of concepts, I believe, have spiritual ties to them. And then wanting to be the king and the best and to be the king of the pirates. I don't look at God's side as being pirates. I look at the devil's side as being pirates. Pirates are people that stole something. Satan stole this planet from God. That he wants them to be nice and help others. Like, stop being pirates. Yeah. It is confusing. But think about those things. Start to look at everything, even when your friends talk to you. Talk to them like that. What do you mean by that? Is it a good thing to be a pirate? Should we be stealing things from other people? And, talk through those things, thinking about the spiritual ramifications of what you're learning in church and what you see in the world. But that's good. I'll have to look into that. Matrix. The Matrix was one of my favorite films. And I think why I actually liked The Matrix was simply because I was hearing this spiritual words, but not understanding where it was coming from. So Neo is Greek for new. His last name is Anderson, so he's the new. Ander is the Greek word for son or man. And so he's the new son of man. He's like a new age Christ. And so he joins up with this other group, which they say they're fighting for the city, Zion, right? They're fighting for Zion, but where's Zion? Zion's in the middle of the earth, right? Zion in the Bible is in heaven. It's a mountain in heaven. And when Neo goes and fights against those three beings that look alike, talk alike, and speak each other's words, he's picks up the phone and he talks to the Matrix and he says, I want to show them a world with no rules, no laws, and it's a world without you. Who wants to show you a world with no rules and no laws? That's not Jesus. That's the Antichrist. God is very much so based on rules. And that machine, the Matrix, said, it is finished. Who says it is finished? God. The architect, the one that designed the Matrix, God is the architect. God is the one that designed all this stuff. So they're fighting against that idea and trying to make the rebellion as the one that is the thing that you want everybody to do. They do the same thing in Star Wars. Star Wars is the same thing. Luke Skywalker is part of the rebellion, and it's the chaotic rebellion. If you look at Darth Vader and the Republic, everything is black and white, everything is perfect, everything is clean. That's a representation of God. And the Death Star has the ability to destroy a world. Does the devil have the ability to destroy a world? No, only God does. And so that Death Star is a representation. That's why Darth Vader is the prophesied one. He dies, he's resurrected, he has that priest-like thing on his chest that lights up. And if you went to a Star Wars convention, you would see that in the original Star Wars, you can look this up on the internet, has Hebrew written in between the buttons that are on Darth Vader's outfit. You don't write Hebrew words on the outfit of the guy unless you know what the war is like. So to me, they flip the idea upside down and they make the rebellion, that's the one that we want to vote for. And they're fighting against God. So she's asking about Lord of the Rings and Narnia. So here's my thing with J.R. Tolkien and with C.S. Lewis as well. I hope C.S. Lewis is in heaven when we get there. Let me preference that. I hope that he gave his heart to God and that he will be there. So I don't want to discourage anybody if they're doing something that they really, truly, honestly believe that they're fighting for God. That's for God to choose whether they go to heaven or not, right? But here's where I have a problem. My Bible tells me no witchcraft, no sorcery, no magic, no nothing like this. For all those things are an abomination to God, right? So he's using magic, sorcery, witchcraft, all those things to blend with the stories of the gospel. Can we use the things that are an abomination to God and mix it with the gospel and tell the gospel story? Can we do that? I think that's problematic. Here's the other problem that I have with C.S. Lewis. In the 7th book called The Last Battle, that's the scene where Aslan the lion is judging the two boys that followed. One boy followed Tash. Tash is the Satan character. And the other boy followed Aslan the lion the whole time. And so he tells both of the boys, you can come into the kingdom. And the boy that followed Tash looks around and goes, why can I come into the kingdom? I followed the Satan character the whole time. And Aslan says, you didn't know you were following him the whole time, and you did it with all of your heart, so I'm going to account what you did for him. I'm going to account you for me, and you can come into the kingdom. Now, let me just put that into Christian plain English. If I follow Satan, and I don't know that I'm following Satan, but I do it with all of my heart, will I still go into the kingdom of heaven? That's dangerous theology. So even if 99% of C.S. Lewis is correct, down to the moment that they're getting judged, that's a major judgment point to me that does not line up with my Bible. So for me, I say, I don't want to read that. I read those as a kid. I did not have this mindset when I read them, but I don't think that they are. And J.R. Tolkien, I think, is just blending even that much more of all of the sorcery and the, I think the wizard, he's, basically a mimic of kind of a Jesus character, but he's also a wizard, and so there's some mixture of things there.
So you said that some movies like Elemental, Frozen, other movies like that, there's like a Satan like put things upside down, right? Is the movie of Pokemon the same thing?
So do you know what the word Pokemon means? Poke is it comes from the word pocket, and mon means demon. So it means pocket demon. And there are little demons that you're going around and collecting and putting into your pocket, or collecting and putting into your app. So should we be collecting demons? No. I think that there is enough evidence in the Bible that tells us to stay clear of the demon world, and Pokemon is kind of one of those things that teeters on that. But good question, though. The Chosen. Oh. The Chosen was a series that I was very hopeful. So I've been traveling around and sharing some of these things on media for 15 years now. Long time. You can imagine. I'm overloaded with like terrible movies. So I was hoping that there was something I could suggest to people to watch. So I actually publicly spoken about The Chosen in many different places, and I told people to watch that. I watched it with my family. My family wanted to watch it. So I sat down and I said, if we're going to watch it, we're going to talk about it. And I want you guys to talk to me about the things that you see. So when you see things that don't line up with what I've taught them or what we've learned in our church, let's talk about it, because I don't want those just going into their brain. And so we had watched season 1, 2, and 3, and there was a lot of times that we as a family, we talked over these things. And it created a lot of really great moments for me to engage with my family and to really talk over some of these things. And then somebody sent me a video of Jonathan Rumi, who was saying that he was knighted as a Knights Templar. Now, I understand quite a bit about secret societies. A Knights Templar is the same level as the 33rd degree Freemason. It's the top of the food chain, if you would, in a secret society. And I just went, you're kidding me. The guy who plays Jesus is a 33rd degree Freemason equivalent Knights Templar of the secret society where I own 2 copies of Morals and Dogma. I can show you. I have 2 of their books at home that says, "We follow Lucifer the light bearer." I know for a fact that Freemasonry follows Satan. And I just went, of course, the guy that plays Jesus, why wouldn't he be, right? He's a Roman Catholic, okay? So now consider, so I took a step back and I went, okay, let me look at this objectively for what's going on. They are now blending Catholicism with evangelical Christianity. You often see them together. What's happening in my country? You have Donald Trump with Mike Pence. You have evangelical Christianity literally with Catholicism, and it is being co-branded as the same thing. So let me ask you a question. Is Catholicism Christianity? No. Very different. They'll tell you it's different. And so what's happening is now the whole world is being wooed into this, well, it's not so bad. They believe in Jesus, and they're doing this, right? So then I went, okay, now I want to go, and I want to really go back with a fine cone, and now my eyes are open. What were they teaching me? And I go all the way back to the scenes like when he meets John the Baptist. Jesus meets John the Baptist. And John the Baptist is telling him that he's going to go tell Herod that he should not be sleeping with Herodias, his brother's wife. And Herod goes, John the Baptist goes, I'm going to go tell him. And Jesus goes, no, you shouldn't do that. And he was like, what? You don't think incest is wrong? And Jesus goes, look, I'm here for something bigger than the breaking of the rules. Now I got a big problem with that. So consider what you're just telling him. Jesus is now telling him, don't tell somebody about incest. Don't go and do that. And then, oh, it's not about the rules. I'm here for some bigger agenda. Well, what is that bigger agenda? Because that's what this whole thing's about, right? So then now there's all these things where even Jesus saying like, I am the law. Do you remember that? That was taken from the Book of the Mormons, right? Nowhere in the Bible does it say, I am the law. Jesus wrote the law because he's God in heaven, right? But look at this. If Jesus says he is the law, and now Jesus changes what day you should worship on, what do you do with that? Do you see how the world is being set up for that? God's law is immutable. It has been written in heaven. It will not change. It did not change back then, and it will not change in the future. It is what it is. But Satan has to change the law of God to bring in a Sunday sacredness. So these are being set up right now with all of Christianity. And they're so subtle, it's very hard to catch. And even me, I study this stuff for a living. I didn't catch it until I went back and looked at it and slowed it down, and then sure enough, it's right there. So he speaks like Jesus. Do you know that people say when they pray thinking and visualizing Jonathan Rumi in their head? Do you know that Jonathan Rumi prays to the dead saints? He goes to the Vatican and he prays to the saints that are there. When he played in that next movie that he played, where he played what was the guy's Lonnie Frisbee? When he played in the movie that was called Jesus Revolution. Do you know he went to the Crystal Cathedral, which is in San Francisco? He found Lonnie Frisbee's grave. He got on the ground and prayed to Lonnie Frisbee that give me a sign that I should play this character that you want me to be. And all of a sudden, the chords rang out on the organ that were in the church. And he took that as that's a sign that Lonnie Frisbee. So if you're praying to the spirits, who's playing through you to play that? That's dangerous to me. And so I really think that we need to get our understanding of Jesus from the Bible and the Bible alone. And I think that the devil, he's most fearful if you have a relationship with the Jesus of the Bible. He needs to move you away from that so that you have a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy, and then he can introduce other things into that Jesus world. See? So I think all of this plays into where this is all going. Yeah. 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 This is correct. I believe there's nothing wrong with playing with Legos. My children love Legos. I don't buy those Legos from the movies. So they don't have the Batman Legos. They don't have the other Legos from the stories because I understand what kids do. They fantasize about those characters. And then if you want to learn how that character is, you're going to go watch that movie. And kids are pretty resourceful. I'm sure my kids, one time I was giving a talk about something, and I think it was Frozen or something like this. My kids were in the audience, and I know that they don't watch all this Disney stuff. And so I said, how many of you here have watched Frozen? And I see all these hands go up, and I see my son's and my daughter's hand go up in the corner, and I just was like, so where did we watch Frozen? At Grandma's. I'm gonna have a talk with Grandma. Yep. I know. Same with mine. And so even in my household, I've had a hard time because my kids are around other kids and they've gotten exposed to certain things by being around. Grandma lets them watch something or something like that. But the most important thing is I've opened up that conversation with my kids. I talk to my kids often about these subjects, and my kids know it. And let me share something with you that just absolutely warms my heart. My son has not watched superhero movies. He does not know who they are. He knows who Superman is. He knows who Batman is because of his friends. But he's never watched them. And he calls them the scary guys. And I love it. He's like, comes up to me one day and he goes, Dad, can I go to a scary guy birthday party? And I went, okay. And I said, well, whose house is this at? Where are you going? And he goes, don't worry, Dad. I won't watch the movie or whatever. I said, okay, that's fine. So he goes to the birthday party, and all the kids, there's a bunch of his classmates, they all want to watch a movie. And it's some superhero movie. And my son goes, you know what? Is there something else we can watch? Now, keep in mind, this is a themed superhero birthday party. And he's 11 years old. And he's sitting there talking with them, and he's like, hey, do you guys got anything else we could watch? And they were like, what, why? You don't want to watch this? He says, no. Let's, what else do you have? He convinces the whole birthday party to watch something else. Well, now 3 of his friends come up to him, and they go, why didn't you want to watch this? And he goes, oh, well, my dad has a ministry, and he made a video about superheroes. And 3 of his friends go, can I have your dad's video? So he comes home to me and he goes, Dad, 3 of my friends want 3 of your videos. Can you give them to me so I can pass them out at school tomorrow? Now that's exactly what I want my son to do. And he was so proud of himself. They didn't watch the movie. And he convinced him his whole friendship, because that's what's going to happen to your child. My child's not always going to be around me. What are they going to do when I'm not around? That's what I want my children to learn. And so I talk with them often about these things, and sometimes, like the example of the Frozen, they have made a mistake, and I talk about that with them. And sometimes your kids are going to make a mistake, but I believe that we need to teach them how to be media wise and learn how to steer away from some of these things that are going to just plant bad things inside of their minds. Yes, I've heard of Superbook. So I've talked with my kids lots about Superbook. They've watched Superbook and they like that story. But I do always tell them, listen, this is also adding something that's not in the Bible. So I don't want my children to get used to understanding or hearing the Bible with information that's not in the Bible. Does that make sense? And so I tell them, like, be aware that this is just somebody's imagination, but these things obviously are not from the Bible. Let's read the real story from the Bible. And I'm trying to always point them back to getting your information from the original source. And so I think some of these things, you can probably make a decision as a parent, yes or no, if you want to watch them or not. No, you're good. Yeah. You can see that when you really start to listen to the principles of the Bible, there's not much to watch. I mean, honestly. People ask me that all the time. Well, what do you watch? I don't really watch anything anymore because I don't want my mind dulled. And I don't want my children's mind dulled. And so I'm trying to constantly encourage them. We don't always have to watch something. Let's go out and have fun outside. Let's do some other things. But, yeah. Yes. 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 And when you see something that is against your Bible or something that is wrong. So now that I've shown you this, there is lots of people that say they have gone back to the movies and said, I don't believe what you're saying. And they'll go and they'll watch a movie, and I guarantee you, if you watch enough common movies, you'll see what I just showed you. And when you see that, what do? Do you get up and walk out? Do you turn it off? Do you say, I will no longer watch that thing? Some people were, like not against Marvel at all, and then they went and they watched the latest Doctor Strange movie, and when he turned water to wine, and it was mimicking God and Jesus, and it was just like, no. Yes. 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 You know what? I believe that God can take things and use them for His glory. I do believe that. There was a book series called This Present Darkness, written by a book named Frank Peretti. He was a writer. And he wrote some things that helped me in my first coming back into the church, helped me to understand about spiritual warfare. But if I read that book today, there's so many things wrong with it. He saw people in heaven and talked with them and this and that. And like, there's all sorts of things that like, I don't believe are real. But it helped me. You know what I mean? And so I think that God can take something like that and He can inspire and encourage somebody and maybe steer their path. And so I don't want to discount that, but I also don't want to encourage people, oh, well, it's okay then, and now I can, watch those things just because someone had a good experience.
Even inside the church, there are some people who believe that it's a kind of absurdity to relate everything that you watch on the movie with good or evil.
Yeah.
But we're talking about believers.
Yeah.
And when I think about unbelievers, it gets worse.
Yeah.
How to approach them?
So I have found, and one of the reasons why a really good way to approach somebody, especially that doesn't believe like you, is to find common ground, right? So common ground to me, and why we started this ministry in the first place, is we actually started the ministry to reach the unbelievers. Because I was a movie fan, and they bring up all these spiritual concepts in movies. So I thought, maybe if I could talk with somebody that doesn't believe in God, I can say, oh, you've seen this movie. Well, this is the concept that they brought up in this movie, but do you know that the Bible also talks about this? And find that common ground to talk about that thing, right? So you'd be surprised how many times movies have been a great way to talk with people about common ground and spiritual concepts. But the second that you start including things like, Star Wars or something like this, where people are very much so a fan of that genre, and then you start telling them like, hey, the rebellion is really not a good thing. God had a rebellion in the universe, and it turned out in a bad way. So that's different than that movie. You'll see people will be like, no, you're looking too deeply into this. And so you have to really, prayerfully approach some of those things, I think, and let the Holy Spirit speak through you to find that common ground. But I feel like common ground is a great way to try and reach unbelievers. And unfortunately, movies are a thing that most people have seen. So it's something that you can begin that conversation with. But obviously, I don't want to encourage people to go and just watch the movies to try to find common ground. But yes. Yes. A dog man? Is that like a cartoon? You know what? I will look into that. I haven't heard of that one. So, yeah. Anybody else have a question? All right. What can you watch? Actually, a very good question. That's a very good question. So, I avoid giving a list like a plague because what I'm not trying to do is give you a stamp of what you can and cannot watch. What I'm trying to do is teach a principle. If it has these elements, you need to make a choice whether you want to watch that or not, right? But when I watch something, and I have watched things from time to time, I like true stories. I like stories about history. I like things that have happened in the world that somebody did something really miraculously good, like the lady that helped with the Underground Railroad during the slave trade in the U.S. Things like that. And so I will watch those things, and then I'll often have a conversation with my children about, is there some sort of spiritual parallel here or something beautiful that we can draw out of this story? And have a conversation about it. But from time to time, I watch, I love nature, I love animals. But once again, you watch Planet Earth, and it's like millions of years ago, this happens, and it's like, why they don't give glory to God, I don't know. But there's, there are things out there that can help us feel more empathy towards each other and be good. But just think through those stories and take a step back and say, what am I learning from this? That's always the principle that I learn, that I come at movies and television with. What is this thing teaching me, and what am I going to walk away with? And if I see something that is very spiritually wrong or I don't like it, I turn it off or I leave. I don't have to finish the story. Yeah, all of those things. That's right. Yes. Yes. Yep. It's boring. Yep. 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 They call that the overstimulation hypothesis. And there is a lot of psychologists that talk about this often. It's a problem in school. One of the biggest problems that we have with young people today is their problem of paying attention. And that paying attention is because we have excited them with so many things, and now all of a sudden you sit them in front of a teacher who's just trying to teach them arithmetic or something, and they're bored. Yeah, they're not changing colors and exploding and, So, yeah. Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for having me. And thank you for this wonderful gift that you gave me as a remembrance. And let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. Dear gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for the ability to come together in a church setting like this, and we can discuss these things that we have in our modern world. And Lord, we know that the time is coming that we are going to need to have our eyes opened to the truth, to be able to discern between good and bad things. And so, Lord, as we are entering into this, help this church right here, this church body, to rally together and to be able to help their children and these young ones in this room to grow up with a wise sense of media and a wise sense about them. And Lord, we know the devil is like a roaring lion, and he's seeking whom he will devour. But Lord, help protect us so that we will see you coming in the clouds and be able to spend eternity with you. We love you and thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.